Well, welcome to another episode of Branded Intent. I am your co-host, Jay.
And I'm your co-host, Brian.
And today we're going to be talking about your target demographic.
Your target audience. Who is actually listening to what it is you're speaking?
Or who is actually going to purchase from you? Who's the best suited to purchase from you?
Most importantly.
Yep. It's money is important.
That it is. So, I thought my notes were up in front of me. They're not. So
that's all right.
Being true and authentic to myself, I'm going to call myself out, throw myself under the bus.
Why do you need to understand your target demographic?
We need to understand our target demographic so we ensure that we're speaking to them, not at them.
And how do you avoid speaking at them? How do you speak to them?
So, for example, here's a great story.
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago, I was at the podcast movement Evolutions in LA.
Okay.
And on the docket, there was a speaker, how to target millennials. And I went, I'm interested. I'm not a millennial. I'm going to go check this out. And I learned a lot to the point of I'm not even going to market to millennials.
We're that frustrating, huh?
It's not that you or they're that frustrating. It's just that if I say groovy, somebody in their 60s isn't going to be offended. But what I learned is some millennials will take offense if I try to use words of their generation.
That's so strange.
I'm trying to fit in. I'm trying too hard. I'm not being my authentic self.
I'm not going to argue that because I've definitely seen that in a few universities and just reactions. But I personally, I wouldn't care. If your brand for groovy for me is a throwback to the 70s, right? If your brand was more 70s centric, that wouldn't bother me. Obviously, that wouldn't bother me at all.
Right.
I think that's kind of the point, I guess, for millennials is we like clear lines as far as how you're communicating, who you're communicating to, right?
Right.
Groovy, just as an example, surf community. It's almost cliche, but there are a lot of surfers and shapers, craftsmen that are, I want to say purists. I myself, as far as the methods, I'm a purist. So for everyone that's just tuning in for this episode, I'm 31 years old. Majority of my 20s, I actually shaped, glassed, and manufactured surfboards for companies like Channel Islands, Lost. Worked on some Jerry Lopez. I don't know, it's hieroglyphics to anyone that's not in the surf scene, but I've worked on tons of boards. I've hit my 10,000th board, and that was when I ended up moving into branding. But there is a shaper that in California, in Santa Barbara, California, his name's Ryan Lovelace. Now, he was originally from Washington, did not grow up surfing, moved to Santa Barbara for school, fell in love with the area, fell in love with the lifestyle, and fell in love with surfing, so much so that he decided to start building boards. Now, his thing was definitely staying in the more 70s, plaid on the inside of the Vans, plush carpet, like the whole thing, right?
It's groovy,
right? So for him, he would use words like groovy. But if you're once again in the surf scene, if you're a fan of Lost or Paisel or your Channel Islands and they use groovy, you would expect a certain aesthetic to go with it.
Right.
And it wouldn't necessarily be their brand. You just know that that's a piece of art that they're pumping out. So,
and sticking with this surf thing, if you're trying to market to surfers and you head down to San Onofre State Beach and you're walking up and down the sand, holding your loafers in a 3-piece suit, how is that going to be perceived by that community?
Unless you're literally paddling out on a longboard in that 3-piece suit and loafers and the briefcase, you're going to get laughed at. And even if you are out in the lineup, you're going to get laughed at, but they see it as it's kind of a play on words.
Right.
So.
But if you're marketing to that community, it's typically young ladies in bathing suits.
Yeah. I think blinders are on right there, but yeah.
I mean, if we're keeping it real,
right. Yeah.
you know?
There's tons of girls in bathing suits, guys in boardies and wetsuits. But
right.
yeah, I mean, you're just understanding your demographic and understanding what your promise is for your entity and your brand. You'd be able to back into almost anything.
But if you understand who you're speaking to, you can speak in a clear language and get your message across to them.
Right.
Which is today's topic.
Yeah. Understanding your demographic.
So how do we understand our demographic?
Age, lifestyle, beliefs, and behaviors. I have that written down right here because I forget that all the time. No, it's if you're trying to, let's say you're a brewery and you're trying to find your specific person that you want to target. A lot of people drink. I would say a vast majority of people indulge in alcoholic drinks, right? Not everyone goes to a brewery.
Nope.
Some people like what their parents drank growing up because that's just what they grew up with.
Pabst Blue Ribbon, baby.
PBR. Other people like the experience of going to a brewery or going to a winery, which is same thing, just a little ritzier.
Right.
Understanding what that target demographic and how that fits with what product you're producing as a brewer, as a brewery, you'll be able to market more effectively. So like if I were a brewery that had really dark beers, porters, stouts, I wouldn't try and market to soccer moms that like rosés and sours.
Absolutely.
I just wouldn't. That's wasted money right there. So understanding your demographic, what is their lifestyle? We in Southern California, there's a huge demographic that love breweries. They love the active lifestyle. They love community. And a lot of breweries are reflecting that just in how they show up with their messaging.
Right.
So
we just lost a great brewery here down the street.
Really?
Yeah. Taps.
Really?
They're out of business.
That's a bummer.
There's a business deal gone bad. Some fraud in play, but it was a great local brewery that marketed really well to their demographic. And it was a great place to go hang out. Trivia, food trucks, cornhole. I don't know what beer and cornhole has to do with one another, but
no, it's community. It's just something to do while you're hanging out. It's we don't really have block parties anymore. The brewery's the next spot.
We don't.
One exercise, if you're trying to do this on your own, one exercise to attempt is find a couple of companies, whether you're home on couch or just by yourself, find a couple companies on social media, see what their content is and see what their product is, see how they're portraying the product in their content, and try and reverse engineer what their target demographic is. You will, once you start doing this exercise, you start understanding exactly like how the brand is formed. Is it more of a feminine leaning brand? Is it more of a masculine leaning brand? Why is it either? Why do they use different colors? Why are they using opaques versus, hard colors? It's a good little exercise. And by doing that and studying other successful companies in your field, you'll actually have a better idea on where to go with your own brand, or you might,
Yeah. If you don't have the funds to hire a professional, a branding expert, one thing I did when I was opening up Sitch Radio was I went to there were only a couple local podcast studios that I would have been competing with, and I hung out. One of them happened to have a coffee shop in the lobby. I got to go hang out and see a cup of coffee and see where the elevator stopped on the way up.
Nice.
Ascertain off who they were talking to, what they were talking about, what did they have in their arms, what other businesses were on that floor, and could kind of gauge of whether they might be a potential customer of mine or fall into my demographic of who I should market to.
All right.
Another place had meetups at their facility. Well, meetups are free. Let me go learn.
Right.
And now who's showing up there. And that information shifted my branding. Really? I shouldn't say that information shifted my branding. It shifted my marketing and my brand message a little bit.
Seems like it shifted your mindset too, a little bit.
A little bit. And it was beneficial, and it helped me start securing customers a little more effectively because I was speaking to my ideal demographic.
Another thing you could do And this is, once again, shameless plug. If you go to jalba.com, I do have a course for DIY branding. This one's a little bit more tailored towards solopreneurs that are just starting out. But sign up for the wait list, contact me directly. And when it drops, you'll be the first to know.
And I'm not going to put Jay on the spot and ask him to drop what he charges for his work. Right. But one of my hosts worked with a local company that does what you do and spent $10,000,
which is
entry. Showed me their folder that had 2 pieces of paper in it. In addition to that, they were delivered some digital assets, some photography.
Right.
There was a PDF that was delivered to them. It wasn't printed and put in the folder, which blew me away, which was their brand guide. And
that's strange.
Their delivery was a little all over the place, number one, but number two, $10,000 for what I saw. I couldn't believe they would have spent that kind of money. But if you're diving into, I need to brand this, there is a lot of thought and research and development and A/B testing and all of that. You can learn to do it, then you can do it. And then you have to try to figure out what all that data is telling you. And then you have to make a decision, and then you have to execute it. By going to somebody that does that, their expertise, their tools, workflows, processes is going to be able to deliver you a much higher quality product at a very, very short period of time, to include persona.
And by the way, if you do have a folder printout, like I hope that there's digital deliverables as well, but for 2 pages, maybe there is a logo design, maybe there is content production. You should be looking in the ballpark of $2,000 for someone that actually knows what they're doing, kind of earlier on in their career, still producing high quality content. So just as a
no logo,
no content, no logo, no content. Then they did high quality deliverables then for what they did deliver.
And you know what?
Anything better.
If you're going to spend time researching what company to work with, you can spend time researching who you feel your target demographic is. Now, that's a piece of this pie. Then we're going to plug in what information we think we understand or we know, and let's see what AI can do for us, Jay.
Leveraging AI is huge. Anyone who says they're an expert at AI, they're definitely talking out of their rear end. It is changing so fast. There's no way in hell anyone is an expert. Now, what you knew yesterday, a majority of that could be applicable today, but that doesn't mean that all of it is.
Right.
As far as understanding how to leverage AI for you, your business, and your product, I would look into how to build buyer personas, a brand persona, and then between those two, you can also leverage that to produce content scripts, scheduling, copy for your emails, copy for your website. AI is definitely not something to shy away from. It's here to stay. It's something to lean into, but understanding how to leverage that for your brand is the missing key. That's the most important key. And I think that's called a keystone, actually.
It is. Before we rewind a little bit, all that information you're getting from AI still needs to be edited, verified in some instances. I know ChatGPT, you can ask for citations and will actually give you some vague citations, but they still need to be fact checked. But I see these courses popping up, $100, $400, AI expert. And yes, I'm 100% agreement. Nobody's an expert on how to utilize these tools, maybe with the exception of the few people who are creating these tools. And then odds are they're only creating a portion of it. But if you understand, do a little research and educate yourself on how large language models work, because most people are calling ChatGPT AI. It's not. It's a large language model. If you understand how they work and how you need to speak to it to get the kind of information you want, it is a very powerful tool that's going to take you 90% of the way in 2 to 5% of the time, which is phenomenal. I was just sharing a document with Jay, 27 pages of gold for an upcoming project I'm working on.
Contextualized gold.
Yes.
Contextualized. That's the key thing here, is like understanding your demographic, understanding your promise, understanding your mission, vision, values, understanding all these different pillars of your brand, understanding how to implement them in a large language format, right? ChatGPT being the most prominent, and understanding how to leverage that information. That's a winning ticket right there.
But in 45 minutes, I generated this 27-page document, but I had a slide deck layout. I had copy on how to promote it. I had social media posts on how to promote it.
This was focused on defining your demographic and understanding how to communicate with them, I'm assuming.
This was utilizing the definitions that I'd previously worked on.
Oh, well, I do know you can, if you say what your brand is, what your product is, what your service is, what zip codes you're looking to target, or what lifestyle, you can actually find a very strong starting point for your target demographic, especially if you're just starting.
Absolutely.
And that'll help with ad placement, marketing, content creation, everything.
And again, once you have the values, mission statement that worked out, it's using a large language model simplifies identifying your persona. Now, that's another piece of that pie. So we've taken what our competitors' customers look like, what AI says our target demographic is. Let's bounce that off the people we're currently serving or past clients and see how that aligns.
It gets deep.
It does get
deep. We can have a whole 2-3 episodes on this. Yeah.
But every piece of this pie is going to drive that home and then allow you to send a targeted message to the proper target and gain the business, the know, like, trust, whatever it is you're trying to accomplish.
Yep. Building these pillars appropriately. That's what keeps the rain off your back, the roof above your head. So,
and then it all starts over.
Yep.
We've marketed some stuff. We've got some great analytics. How do those analytics line up with what we thought our ideal customer was?
And those analytics can tie into your long story arc for your brand.
They can. Very much so.
It all comes back around. It's
all circular. So any platform you're on, if it gives you analytics, you need to learn how to read them and how to interpret them, and then what to do about implementing that newfound knowledge into your brand message, story message, etc.
Yeah, this seems like a no-brainer. Understanding who you're selling to before you sell to them.
Right.
We like to complicate things, and by we I mean everyone. Everyone goes through the same hurdles.
Yep.
Complicating things that should pretty much just be straightforward. Understanding your demographic, defining your demographic is anything but straightforward. But if you get to a point where you have a foundation with it, everything else gets a little simpler.
Right.
You know, not knowing who your demographic is like being Robin Hood at an archery competition, blindfolded, spun, told to shoot the second apple from the left from 300 yards out. You don't have a chance in hell of hitting that. Even Robin Hood wouldn't hit that.
Now let me modernize that story.
Yep.
Customer comes to me and says, hey, I'm spending a lot of time and energy on social media and it's just not giving me anything back. Awesome. Let's take a look at what you're doing. Let's take a look at what time you're doing it. Most platforms now, you can get data back on when your audience is on the platform, using the platform. And these people still won't post during those times.
And by the way, if you're on Instagram, which I'm assuming you are, all you need is a business account, which if you convert your personal or your agency, whatever, to a business account, it gives you all those analytics in one of the drop downs.
Exactly. And it gives you the meta backend tied in with your Facebook, where you now have scheduling tools, tons of tools to help you with your audience.
So like I said, it gets deep. It gets very deep, very complex. But if you have a foundation and you stick to that foundation, it's manageable.
So I have a brick and mortar studio in Orange County, California,
which is where we are.
Should I spend time marketing to people in, say, Riverside?
Nope. I would say if they're coming in for a conference in Irvine and they're staying at a hotel and they still need to produce a podcast,
right? So one-offs, and I do have a few one-off customers who do live out of state, but when they're in town visiting family, this is their studio of choice.
Yeah, a few years ago, example. I mean, we're kind of name dropping here, but Boss Rutan was in your studio before you're at this location.
Yeah,
right?
my first location. He was a guest on a show though.
Oh, okay.
Which was pretty cool.
But I'm sure he doesn't live in Orange County.
No.
Yeah.
He drove down to be a guest on a predominant show that we produced, which is cool.
That's cool.
But your show host that wants to produce, even if they're batch recording, do they really want to drive for 40 miles?
I wouldn't.
To sit here
once
for
a week,
5-6 hours.
Yeah, no,
I don't know. And I mean, they're passing so many studios on the way. So that right there limits my advertising circle. It also limits my demographic.
Unless your
Mhm.
customer service experience is so far above everyone else's between where they are and where your location
Right.
is, and if they can afford it,
Right.
you know, we need to define something like that, like there's an exposure triangle,
And there's things I can leverage.
Mm.
Most studios, you get what they have.
Mm.
Here, we can change the branding. I have false walls I can put up behind us.
Mm.
I have an entire another room with plenty of room for different backdrops, red brick or, white brick or outdoor or whatever. So we're a little more adaptable for a show where most of my competitors aren't.
Yeah, they have their couple rooms, they're painted what they are, come in and record.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
So there's things we can do. However, I don't spend time or money marketing outside of a 20-mile radius.
And that's smart for what you have. That is smart. If you are a clothing brand, it's a little
Different
bit less.
story.
Yeah, a little bit less specific on zip codes and more specific on lifestyle.
Right.
So understanding your demographic, understanding your industry, it's crucial.
So, one of the most undervalued things I feel people miss is polling.
Polling? I don't poll.
You can put a poll on a Twitter.
Mhm.
What do you think of this? Or choose whatever. And people give you answers. And if you write a well-written poll question and whatever information you get back, yes, it's not going to be scientific. You're not going to get thousands of responses. However, you're going to get some information. Respond to it.
You will actually get some stats on that.
You
So
will.
on TikTok, well, most of these places, they'll show you how many people viewed it,
Mhm.
how many people voted on it,
Mhm.
and then it'll give you a percentage breakdown of what they voted on. So that tells you if you have a high viewership on that poll, not very many people actually voted.
Yeah.
That tells you that what you're asking isn't important.
Right.
Right. It's important to the people that voted on it, but it's
Right.
not important to the actual conversation as a
Right.
whole. So
But
there's things.
But say, Jay, on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
if you put a poll post out and you said how many entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, or people with a side hustle often look at their brand and go, I really need to update that sometime.
I would assume that's a lot actually, because people tend to not change the product, they tend to change the service. And
Right.
if they don't have a service, oftentimes when we're looking at something and it's not going the way we want it to, we start changing our image, we start changing our message, we change ourselves because we think the problem's with ourselves. Now, to some degree it is, but it's more of how are we failing to show up for our customers, not we're failing ourselves. I've been the culprit of this for myself.
Mhm. I think we all have.
Yeah. I mean, I used to not rebrand myself completely, but complete update every year on the first, and
that too can get confusing for the customer.
Very confusing. Yeah. And I actually got a lot of negative blowback on that. And for that the reason why that happened was because I was stuck between, am I a business or am I a person? Right. And maybe you're in the same boat of, do I brand myself as an individual or do I brand myself as a business?
Right.
And I think the deciding factor is, do you have employees that pull weight for you?
Right.
If you do, brand yourself as a business.
Right.
If you are leaning on people for your team occasionally on and off, you need to brand yourself as yourself. Right. So you're using your network, you're leveraging your network. But yeah, that's just another branding.
But going back to that poll question, if 100 people responded and 60% said, yes, I've often looked at my logo and said, I need to fix it. and now you could reach out to them one-on-one
Mm.
and or just get demographics of who they are, where they live, what their hustles are, that could really shape your target market.
Understanding demos.
Off of a simple poll on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
And I think people need to use them more. I need to use them more.
Yeah. And if you wanted to go that route, I know you can actually pay to boost
Mhm.
your poll. So if you are going to spend let's say you have a $10,000 budget for your brand, building your brand, I would spend 500 to 1,000 of that on 1 or 2 polls between YouTube and LinkedIn,
Mhm.
just to figure out, what your service or what your product is.
Right.
If where's your demographic most likely to be?
Right.
If it's shoes, probably going to be on Instagram or TikTok. If it's or Pinterest. If you're working B2B, go to LinkedIn, put a poll out, spend that money first, figuring out what your demographic is. That way, when you go to someone to build your brand, you could say, this is my demographic. This is the problem I'm solving. This is how I'm solving it. I would like to have something that fits our story. Like, this is our story. Please help me. Or you can sign up for a couple of the courses and do it yourself.
Right.
The effectiveness at that point is completely based off of your time allotment during the day. And if the person who created the course effectively explained everything to where you can consume it within that 5-10 minutes.
Right. I think you all heard, do you want it quick or do you want it good?
Yep.
You can't have both.
Unless you want it cheap. And then,
well, that would be quick. You're going to get cheap.
Right.
If you want it good, it's going to take longer, not
Right.
quick,
But
but it's going to cost you a little.
For that story that you said, 10,000, I would love to see what they produce, because I've never heard of anyone producing 3 or 4 printouts for a 10K.
Let me share this with you. The individual incorporated none of it.
It's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
And not to overwhelm or not to add weight to this, your target demographic may change. For example, Instagram used to be it, and then TikTok hit the street.
But TikTok's more of a younger, that's like Gen Z and younger millennials.
But how many younger generation people left Insta to go to TikTok?
Right.
And that hurt everybody's algorithm. Right?
Yeah, I actually where I don't want to ramble too much. From surfing, got back into photography, videography, and then I'd always been producing logos for family, friends, and like just business owners that were in my network. I just always produced something for them. Never charged them. It was more of a friends thing, and I'd get free food. I was a young kid, growing boy. But photography for me on a personal note has taken a deep dive, because a lot of that that act of photography turned into more client work than personal work. And then the personal work that I was posting on Instagram or social media started dropping as far as interactions, because the algorithm would change. But we see that as, oh, we're not good enough. It affects us. So understanding those algorithms is a little, it's a lot. It's a lot. But we should round off with audience, because we keep on rambling elsewhere.
You know what? Your last bullet point here is awesome. Would you like me to read it, or would you like to speak on it?
I'd like to read it, and then
go for it.
Yeah. So our last note, tailoring your brand message to your audience. If you use your mission, vision, and values accordingly, you can back into your target demographic by contextually producing material that bridges the 2 points. So just to get, a nod back to the beginning of this podcast, where we should be rounding up, we're approaching the 30-minute mark. If I was a brewery and I had darker beers, but my target demographic that I really wanted to bring into my brewery was, middle-aged moms and families, because oftentimes, honey, where do you want to eat? Wherever. Okay. Does McDonald's sound good? No, absolutely not. Right. So if you're a guy, you've experienced this. If you're a girl, you've experienced it too. You're probably giggling right now. If I was a brewery, I would want to target middle-aged moms.
So you're going to
on a
want to brew
Friday or
some
Saturday.
reds,
Yeah.
some blondes.
I'd want to play with it a little bit. Definitely blondes, definitely bring a lighter, but also have those cornhole games, have those games where even if the parents are drinking responsibly, hopefully the kids can play and be safe, right? You want to create a family-friendly environment, even though it is an adult environment.
Absolutely.
So it's a way of bridging those two things that typically wouldn't cross over.
So well said, Jay.
Thank you.
Bring us home.
This has been the end, or this is the wrap of the 5th episode for Branded Intent. My name is Jay.
And I'm Brian.
Yep. And if you wanted to learn more from either of us, you can go tojalba.com or
accountables.network. Links will be in the show notes below.
Yep. See you next week.